Ronald's here. I just let him know.
You're in there?
I think so.
You sound good, Ronald. Thank you.
You guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
We
good.
hear you.
Good. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build. This is a free online workshop for those who want to get their California Contractors license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the parts of the license application and give you practical tips to keep completed correctly, and to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications to get your California's contractor license. We will also help get you ready for your licensing exams and give you a link to a video that shows you exactly what to expect on your test day. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State Licensing Board, the government agency responsible for regulating the California's construction industry. My name is Fuad Garagozlu, Licensing Supervisor at CSLB. Joining us is Ronald James from the CSLB's License Verification Unit. Good morning, Ronald.
Good morning. CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. Our board is made up of 10 public members, including 1 labor representative, 1 local building official, 1 representative of statewide senior citizens organizations, and 5 contractors. Appointments are made by the governor and the state legislature.
Please note, CSLB test centers are open. Applicants will have to wear masks on test day. Before arriving for your test, check and follow your local's COVID-19 mask guidance. If you are watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to ask questions, you will need to join us on WebEx. There is a banner with a link on the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. This is also where you can download this presentation to follow along. The presentation file includes clickable bonus links that appear on slides throughout this workshop. We are going to present a lot of information today, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We will archive the video of this workshop and put it on our YouTube channel so you can go back and watch it again. To ask a question on WebEx, use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature, on the bottom right of your screen. Make sure you send your questions to all panelists. Finally, we tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how you document your work experience and what credit you can get for your education or military service. Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you wait to send us those questions until after you see that part of the workshop. We'll go through your question at the end of our presentation, which should last about 45 minutes.
The information obtained during this webcast is not, nor is it intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractors licensing application, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the 2021 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free on the CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher, LexisNexis. There are links for both at the bottom of the screen.
Here is a list of what we are going to cover today. We'll take you through the process for applying for your California contractor license. First, who needs a license? Why get a contractor license? The minimum qualifications you will need to get a license, and what credits you might qualify for. The types of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications, including our new B2 residential remodeling classification. We will spend a lot of time giving you tips on how to help fill out your applications, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. Fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check, and we will help get you ready for the exam or exams you will need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things you will need to have in place before your license is issued. Things like bond and insurance. First, we will take a look at who needs a license. Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes both labor and materials.
The law doesn't let you break down a project into 499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the total jobs, $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what is the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the State Business and Professional Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. We've got a link to that code at the top of the page if you download the presentation. I'll read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part we underlined. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, purport to have capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to contract any building or home improvement project or part thereof. In other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself, why should I get a license? Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you have taken the steps to get licensed and you are serious about your career choice. It allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make the community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work you do. There is value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanics lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and or a $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines anywhere between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So what do you need to get your license? First, is it important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here is the short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or valid individual taxpayer identification number, or ITNIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years of experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We will spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in a few minutes.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education, technical training, and apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions on this. First, CSLB can prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications we receive and process every month, we don't have the staff time that would be needed to prejudge your experience. We can only review your documents after you apply for your license. Next, to get an education credit, the coursework must be directly related to the work you will be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning you will need at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of education credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB with written documentation. That means a copy of any apprenticeship completion certificates you earn, or get official technical school or college transcripts. Have your transcripts mailed to you. Do not open the envelope. Leave it sealed and included with your CSLB applications packet. Note that high school courses will not earn you any credit towards your contractor's license.
If you're looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience, you'll need to get your license first. This is the most important slide of this entire workshop. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for your education. Note that for some areas, we are only giving you averages. You will see that your credit will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We're not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on this slide. So our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you were hoping. Let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most educational credit you can get is for a Bachelor of Science degree in construction management. This degree will get you the full 36 months of credit. Next is a master or bachelor's degree in business or a law degree. Any one of those will get you 24 months of credit. An associate in science degree in construction management will get you 18 months credit. A bachelor's degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. An associate's degree in a major besides construction management will get you an average of 6 months credit. Credit for individual college classes are given on a case-by-case basis, usually with a maximum of 6 months credit. Apprenticeship completion certificates will get you 24 to 36 months, depending upon the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker apprenticeship gets you 24 months credit for the C20, HVAC, and C43 sheet metal classifications only. A lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in C7 low voltage and C10 electrical classifications only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you've taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, don't use your education credits to try and squeak by the 4 years or 48 months requirement.
If you served in the military, some of that service might count as well. On the bottom of the page, you will see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program, where you can learn more. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of CSLB's test centers. One exam is on California business law. The other is in the specific trade covered by the license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we will discuss later. Those licenses only require the qualifier to take the law and business exam. As we mentioned, the qualifier is the one who must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We are not going to spend a lot of time on the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both exams in very specific situations. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They're also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as the project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you're going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is a sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second, a corporation, where either the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licenses are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, whereas either the general partners or a responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. That's 2% of our licenses. Finally, a limited liability company or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or a responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. About 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filling your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of the screen. First is Class A, for general engineering contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require a specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones who build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is Class B, or general building contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires, as part of its construction, at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry, unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final class is C, or a specialty contractors. These licenses are for construction work that require a special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of a special building trades or craft. Examples from this class include C10 electrical contractors, C20 HVAC contractors, C27 landscape contractors, C36 plumbing contractors, C39 roofing contractors, C46 solar contractors, and C57 swimming pool contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61 D49 tree service limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
CSLB is offering our first new license classification in a decade. It's called the B2 Residential Remodeling Classification. The B2 allows contractors who don't have structural framing experience to get a license with the CSLB. Here's what interested applicants need to know. B2 license holders must engage in 3 or more trades or crafts on a project. B2 licensees also are limited to working on existing residential wood frame structures. There are some things B2 license holders cannot do. They cannot make structural alterations to load-bearing partitions and walls, and they cannot install or extend electrical or plumbing systems. They can make modifications to existing systems, for example, install recessed lighting or alter plumbing for 2 shower heads. The B2 licensees also cannot install or replace an HVAC system. Like all other CSLB licensees, B2 applicants/licensees must comply with the CSLB experience examination, license bond, and workers' compensation insurance requirements. CSLB is accepting applications for the B2 license, and we're scheduling exam dates now. If you have more questions about the B2 license, email the licensing division at licensing@cslb.ca.gov.
When you are ready to apply for a license, here are the two forms you will need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is your bonus link on the left side of the page, so be sure to download this presentation. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little later.
Okay, now let's break down the steps of the application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you're using an RME or responsible managing employee as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with a licensed qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers are in a different part of the state and cannot exercise the direct supervision needed, or they aren't willing or don't understand their role as a qualifier. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. There are two options. One, application for original contractor's license. And two, the application for original contractor's license examination waiver 7065. We've got links for both at the bottom of this page.
The next step is to determine your name. Take a look at the application, for example. Some things to keep in mind. Your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you are getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have company of John Smith Plumbing Construction, Heating, and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name registered with the California Secretary of State's office. The names of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application. You can also use what is called a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. The main things to remember here is that DBA name cannot be misleading, and you must use that name in all advertising and all your contracts. Next, you will want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. We mentioned that a few minutes ago. There is a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of the items are basic but important. Proofread your application for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date the application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation for your exams. If so, complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of translators a little later.
Next, let's take a look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for a criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to the CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, and all home improvement salespersons. If you are in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what is called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations in California, broken down by county, on the Attorney General's website. We have a link here, or you can simply go to the Attorney General's website and search for live scan. You will also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you're out of state, it's going to be tough for you to get your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. Those take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI and Department of Justice to process. So you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor, and if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions which occurred within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would look back to 2014. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back for 3 years of the application date to 2018. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we get based on criminal convictions. You will also note the bonus link to our fingerprint information page.
Okay, along with the educational credits we talked about earlier, this next section is particularly the most important of the entire workshop, and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It is how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2011. The experience must be no less than a journeyman level or as a foreman, a supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified as opposed to a trainee and can perform trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There is a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience. So feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach them at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certificates of work experience forms as you need to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person certifying your work describes the actual work you perform and the dates in which you perform them. We will now share some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are just examples.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of experience you're trying to demonstrate. This first example is journey person experience. The overall theme we'll keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. Note, the work experience form should be completed by your certifier someone who has knowledge and has observed your work experience in the classification you're applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Okay, now some examples. Our first example is for the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for your journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work like this. Bob performed rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough-out plumbing and electrical, interior, exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something generic like residential general building trades. For four-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and or supervisory work. Here is an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job site performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pour, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior, exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, an acceptable description would be something like residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. Example, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and tools, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior, exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Once again, unacceptable would be something like residential general building trades. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include example of work done that were out of a state, military, or federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, foreperson, or supervising employee. A tip, be specific about your duties and employment circumstances. Our next example is a post C27 landscaping contractor. First, for experience at the journey level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance, and installation of sprinklers, ground plans, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete, mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Again, unacceptable would be gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a foreperson would be something like Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An acceptable description again would be something like gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. Example, as a construction lead on multiple projects, applicants supervise landscape construction, maintenance, and installation of the sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard arts, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Unacceptable, gardening, yard maintenance, planting. Finally, for out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for general building contractor is required. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as work for the military, on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and employment circumstances. By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all the information provided on at least 3% of our applications. Our next three slides run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience. In the event that your application was selected and you were asked to provide additional documentation. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You will only need to provide this information if requested by CSLB staff. On the lower right of the screen, you will see a link to this publication on our website. If you look at the chart, you can see the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your experience if you have been self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you are applying for a Class B general contractor and you need owner-builder experience. Here is the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link to view the print this publication. If you don't have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you're asked to provide it in the future. CSLB staff may contact the certifier of experience or other parties to verify experience.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications each month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. We've got two pieces of advice. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that is the content you'll need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, double check to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well. And don't forget to include the all-important $330 application fee. You'll pay the $200 initial license fee after you pass your exam or exams. Then put your application packet in the mail to CSLB or hand deliver to one of our public counters. We've got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen with our office locations.
Okay, filling out your application. Section 1, business name and address. Now that we have gone through the information you will need to include, here is a closer look at the application so you can see where the information goes. Section 1 is where you list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure the name that you have selected is compatible with the classification and the entity that you're applying for, and is not misleading. If your business is a corporation or LLC, you will need to make sure that name matches the Secretary of State. In line 2, you will indicate that classification you're applying for, the mailing address and phone number that you list on line 3 and 3C will be made public on CSLB website once you're licensed.
Parts of the application, Section 2, Business Entity. In Section 2, you will select your business entity. If you are applying for a corporation or LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. Section 3, qualifying individual, full legal name, and address. In Section 3, you will list the qualifier's information. Remember, the qualifier is the person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction operations. The qualifier will be the person taking the exams. On line 5, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you are the only person that will be listed on the license, you would enter 100%. On line 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending upon the entity you have selected. You will find more information on this on pages 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line 8 is where you will sign and date your application. Section 4, personnel full legal names and addresses. Section 4 is where you will list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, president, secretary, and treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of the application instructions. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you will want to make sure that all personnel that are listed with the Secretary of State are listed in this section. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application in Section 4. Section 5 is a series of yes and no questions, so we're not going to cover these here. Section 6, qualifier education, apprenticeship, licensure, and military. You may be granted credit towards the 4-year experience requirements based on your education. Question 17 asks if you completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. For those sealed transcripts mailed to you, then include the sealed transcripts with your application packet. Do not have the program send transcripts directly to CSLB. You don't want to take a chance that we're not able to match them up with your application. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. This credit is not on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit toward the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it must be translated and evaluated by an accredited evaluation service that does business within the United States.
Next is certification of work experience, part 1. Now we will discuss the part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you will list the information about your employer where you gain your experience. If you are self-employed when you gain the experience, please make sure to check the box in line 2. If you are applying for B, general construction license, and will be using experience obtained while working on your property, make sure to mark the box in line 4. Part 2 will be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the date Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section with their own words. The final part of work experience certificate is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification. Owner Builder Project List. The next form will discuss the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience Form. This form only needs to be completed if you are applying for a B General Construction license and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on the property. The experience must be verifiable through building permits, final inspection, and other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number on line 6. On line 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project. Question 11 asks if other general construction contractors work on the project and what trades they perform. Remember, this information should be as complete and accurate as possible.
With all the information Fuad just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we are recording this workshop. We'll post the video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch it in case there's anything that you missed. Okay, so you've got your application submitted. How do you check the status of that application? Here are 2 resources. First is the secured check. You'll need your application fee number and contractor PIN number to get an update. We'll send that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing times. Each week we update our website with the dates we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on and know that if the date shown is after the date we likely received your paperwork, it's likely we're busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands, of documents every day, and we process them in the order they're received. So be sure to take extra time getting the application right so we don't have to send it back to you to correct and then have to start processing your application again. When your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You will get your exam notice at least 3 weeks prior to your exam date. CSLB test centers are currently open. They were closed from December to February for COVID. CSLB has 7 test centers throughout California and encourages candidates to take their exams at the nearest test center.
If you're an applicant whose first language is in English and you don't feel confident taking your exam in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads you the questions. Question 16 asks you if you need a translator. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You cannot just show up on the day of examination with someone to translate. When you get an exam date, make sure you do not miss it. If you fail to appear for the exam, you will have to pay a non-refundable $60 fee to reschedule. That fee may be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstances beyond your control, once only. Also, we have study guides available for each exam. Included in each study exam, you will find a list of sections and topics covered by the exam, They also include sample questions, how each section of exam is weighted, and recommended resources that you can use to prepare for the exam. These study guides are available online on our website. There is a bonus link to them on the bottom of the screen.
Here's a quick look at two of those study exams. The first is the Law and Business exam, which all qualifiers must take, no matter which license classification, including the D series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create that exam. You will see the same format on the B General Building Study Guide. We would recommend that you really pay attention to the exam content here, especially how we have broken down what percentage of questions there will be on each of the 5 topics on the exam. On the lower right of both of these 2 slides, you'll see bonus links to the actual study guide, as well as link to the complete list of study guides.
Again, our test centers are open and we do have COVID-19 procedures in place for applicants on the test day. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get checked in. Wear a face mask or other face covering. Check and follow your local COVID-19 mask guidance before arriving. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We have also produced a short what to expect on test day video that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of the screen.
You'll take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you'll see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You'll also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about that question. You'll get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time you get to complete your exam. You'll get your results at the end of the exam. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee each time. After you pass your exams, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay $200 for your initial license fee, which will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor's surety bond and possibly some other bonds depending upon what business entity you'll have. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you've got employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. See our website for more information. Please note that your insurance company or broker cannot submit your insurance information can submit your insurance information directly to the CSLB on our website. If you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB. You can do that online as well. In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you especially in situations where you're going to solicit business, talk to potential customers, or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask to see your pocket license. If you're going to have salespeople working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more on how to do this. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, November 5th, 2021, will expire on November 30th of 2023. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need, so you won't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires. But unfortunately, it is your responsibility to renew your license on time. Here are a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we've got on file. If you're not at that address anymore, you're probably not going to get it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier of the license. Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to have someone as a salesperson to solicit, sale, negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. These people are called home improvement salespersons, or HIS. Without an HIS, the official personnel of record on a license are the only ones who can solicit, sell, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, licensed qualifiers, partners, corporate officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. An HIS can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must notify CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate an HIS with their license. There are a couple of exceptions to note. First, those who only schedule appointments for the contractor or registered HIS, and bona fide service and repair people. These are the folks you call out for repairs, including for things like air conditioning, heating, and plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or homeowner. For example, if your AC unit goes out and you call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and sell you a new HVAC system, they would have to be a registered HIS. Also, don't employ an unregistered salesperson. That subjects you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. We've got a bonus link at the bottom of this page if you want to look at the actual code sections of law.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. That is our presentation. Now it's time to answer your questions. Question 1. I would like to start a business with the specific purpose of staining wood fences. I have been trained by the stain manufacturer. Is a contractor license required? If so, can I be covered by D64 non-specialist? That does not cover it. But for the specific of what classification you will need, I would recommend to send an email to classifications, that's plural, classifications at cslb.ca.gov. Over there are our deputies. We will respond to you, and you can keep that as in your formal documentation for future reference. Is credit given for work experience with the manufacturer, distributor of related products? Again, if you have engaged in repairing, altering, installing the equipment, that experience can be it can be verified, that can be used. But you have to have whether repair or modify or upgrade or install those equipments. If I have a Bachelor of Science in Architecture and currently obtaining an associate degree in construction management, will that equal 3 years of education? Ron, you want to take care of that?
Architecture, I don't have my chart exactly with me right now, but the associate degree in construction management is going to get you, I believe, the 18 months. The bachelor's, if you had that in construction management, that would get you the full 3 years if you're going for the B classification and most other classifications.
Yeah, but it won't be accumulated. So if we give you the highest, credit allowed, for example, here, if Bachelor of Science in Architecture is 2 years and the associate degree in construction management is 18 months, we will give you the 2 years for the highest one. We will not accumulate, combine them.
Correct.
Currently on the job, wondering if this WebEx is a requirement for applying for contractors. No, this is just informational presentation. On educational slide, it states other associate in science, not in construction management. What is that exactly? Does that mean having an associate in any field will give you at least 6 months? That is correct. If you have the associate degree in art, for example, that will get you at least 6 months. Well, 6 months at most. That will get you 6 months. Where on the application do I indicate I'm applying for a C or D licenses? On the section 1, on the first page, item number 2 will ask you what classification you're applying for. So if I'm in deferred judgment, meaning my charges are going to be reduced and then expunged from my record, but I need my license now to get to work now because I have lots of bills and a family to support, am I going to be able to move past? Again, we don't know. It all case by case. So you should submit your application. And while we go through that process, your application will be active and we will work on it. And if we need for documents, we will wait for that. But there is no answer, straightforward answer to that one. Is there any conflict of interest with your family member being the licensed advocate of your application? I.e., my father was my supervisor and is signing off that I completed all of the categories necessary for the license. No, there is no limitation on who can certify you. Anyone who has observed you do the work can certify you. I would like to apply for General B, but my employer doesn't have a General B license. Do I need someone else with a General B license to sign my work experience? As you see on the... Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, anyone can sign for your General B experience as long as they have observed the work. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your employer, but it does have to be somebody who has firsthand knowledge of you performing that work.
How many licenses can an individual obtain from the CSLB, Ron?
Well, as a qualifier on the license, you can qualify up to 3 licenses in a year as well as a sole owner. If under sole owners, you can have as many sole owner licenses as you want. A lot of people have one license and add multiple classifications to it. Some people want an individual license for each classification. So as a qualifier, you can be on 3. For sole ownerships, you can have as many sole ownership licenses as you want.
What are the main requirements that an applicant needs in order to be approved by the CSLB to take the General B license? You best is look at our classification descriptions on our website, but the General B license, they need have experience in framing and rough carpentry. That means they have to show they've done a structural work plus 2 unrelated trades. So you got to have experience in framing, for example, concrete and electrical, plumbing. You need a combination of those, at least 4 years. I have a question regarding criminal history. I recently pleaded to felony domestic once I complete. Yeah, regarding those, again, we are not, you say yes, again, you don't submit anything. Once we get that, if we need any documentation, we will ask you. So for now, just submit the application, answer those questions accurately, and if we need, disclosure, we will contact you. How soon will I be able to apply to a specialty license? Once the charges is dropped, I want to apply for signature review. Can you also please send me the link for the disclosure statement regarding criminal? Like I said, do not submit those disclosures. Once you submit your application, we will ask you to take a live scan, go get fingerprints. The fingerprints, you go to DOJ and FBI, they will send us, the results. At that point, if we need anything, we will contact you. For my address, if I don't, section 1 for my, if I don't have a home address, what shall I list as my address? For section 1, there is a place for 2 addresses over there. That is, one is for, mail, which can be like a PO box, but we also require a physical address. So you have to have a physical address for your business, whether that's your residential address or some other address. What are the requirements for license renewal after 2 years? Ron?
Depending upon the classification, for the most part, it is paying for your renewal fee for another 2 years on your license. However, they may require you to recertify whether you need workers' compensation or not. And for certain specialty classifications, such as the C22 asbestos classification, you may need to provide documents that show you're still registered with DOSH as an asbestos removal registration with them. As far as requirements, as far as recertifying your experience or anything like that, that isn't the case. You're paying for the renewal of the license you have, and then some additional documents depending upon the classification or recertification of your workers' comp status.
Thank you. Will construction trade classes on your transcript give you any credit, even if you have not completed a degree or certificate program at the trade college? Yes. Our deputies will look at those, look at the curriculum, and give you some. But like I said, you will get the minimum for those, but you will get some. Section 4. Do you leave this section blank if you are sole property? Yes. if you don't have additional personnel to list, you don't need to submit that section. But if you are a sole owner and you haven't, for example, you're using a responsible managing employee to qualify you, then that person be on the first page and you will be on the second page. But those are rare situations. So if you only want personnel on the license, then Section 4 is not needed. What are the experience requirements for the new B2 residential license? Experience in 3 trades. Can you expand? Ron, can you help with that?
It is 3 building trades. So once again, just as with all the others, it's going to be 48 months of experience, showing experience in 3 different building trades. So something like drywall, painting, plumbing. So for the B residential one, it's just going to show multi-trade experience as the regular B classification requires. It's just that the regular B classification requires as one of those trades to be something in carpentry or structural framing. This will be 3 additional building trades, not including the structural framing requirement.
Thank you. For the owner building, B general building construction experience, only filled out if you held the license. No, what it is you know, a lot of folks, they do experience. For example, they buy and sell their home. It's their homes. You know, they work on it, they buy it, they work on it, renovate it, and sell it. So, but there is no, those are the folks. So you don't have to already be a licensed contractor, but you need to show, you have to pull permits and you have to show these on those project lists. And then our deputies will actually look at those, look at the permits, and then they decide that, you know, how much credit you will get for those. But no, you don't have to be a licensed contractor. Let's see. What are the experience we do for the owner building? Okay, when are you going to talk about license A? License A, again, it has related to fixed work projects. Yeah, you can look at our description on our website, and if you have any detail or specific questions, please send an email to classifications@cslb.ca.gov. I have an associate in HVAC from a community college. How many months of credit? Again, we are not going to get to details of those. Please submit that, and as we review, we will let you know. Does working as a 1099 paid worker for 6 years full-time qualify for the 4 years experience needed? That could be something to verify that experience, but again, once we see the certification of work experience, but we actually look at the trade you perform, that is the qualifying. Now, if you're picked at 3% for random check, then those will come into play. Do we submit the application online or mail in? We are working on to put the applications online, but unfortunately right now is only mail in, or you can come to our front counter and drop it at the front counter. You can do it at our Norwalk office or Sacramento, but it has we don't have online application currently. Does building repairs on commercial buildings give you credit towards B2 classification? No, B2 classification is actually, as it says in the description, is working on the, you know, wood frame residential homes. If I had a live scan in the past, and since then, all charges have been expunged or lowered and sealed, will the new live scan show all these? Again, you submitted. I can tell you what the DOJ or FBI is going to send to us. Once we get that, if you still have fingerprints with you, if you're still somehow licensed with us, you're on any kind of license, then whatever happens, DOJ and FBI let us know. But if you're not on the system, you have to get the new fingerprints. And then those new fingerprints, once we receive the results from DOJ, if we need anything, we will request it. Does the work observed that is being certified need to have permits? Again, we may request for those. We may, for example, owner builder. Yes, we definitely require permits for those. Sometimes, again, when you're picked for 3% random check, we may request those, but do not submit it unless you're owner builder with your application. What kind of proof or evidence does CSLB will require applying for a general B license? Example, what kind of documentation is noted for? Again, go ahead, Ron.
I can take that one. So once again, the certification of work experience will be filled out by someone who has firsthand knowledge of the work that you have done, whether it's structural, rough framing. That person has firsthand knowledge of the trades that they are signing under proof of penalty or proof of perjury, that they have observed you performing this work. However, as Fahd mentioned before, a random 3% of all of our applications are done on a more detailed examination of the experience. At that time, they may require for that proof of experience projects that had permits and other examples of the work that was done in more detail or more information from the certifier. But for the initial application, we're looking for a signed document that states the trade work, be it structural framing and the other trades required for the B classification, that they were observed and the certifier has firsthand personal knowledge of that work being performed. And then we may require at a later time for more documents to verify that if that comes up in our 3% verification.
Thank you. If you're applying for a C license, do you still need to take the open book asbestos text online, Ron?
Yes, all applicants will take the open book at asbestos. It is for general knowledge of every contractor. So yes, everyone will be taking that test regardless of the classification.
Does the experience have to be consecutive? We need 4 years, 48 months of experience in the last 10 years. Correct, Ron?
Correct. It doesn't have to be a consecutive 48 months. So in other words, you could have done 2 years worth of the experience 8 years ago, and you may have done 2 years worth of that same classification experience in the last 2 years. You just need to have a certifier for each time frame that has firsthand knowledge of that experience, but it does not have to be consecutive. It could literally be 1 year over 4 different years spaced out, but it just has to be within the last 10 years.
Are calculators provided in the exam? Can you bring notes or books? You can't bring anything into the exam, and everything is touch screen. So all you need, it will be provided to you. What is the process if your application does not accept it due to short of experience? Will you be able to apply again in the future when you continue to complete experience, Ron?
Yes. So if you do not meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience requirement at this time, when you have and can meet that, you can reapply, and the experience that you've submitted, even though it wasn't enough at the time, still counts. As long as it's within a 10-year period, and you're 6 months short, you go out, you do the experience for 6 months, you can reapply. You now have the 48 months worth of experience. As long as it's all still within the 10 years when you apply, it will all be counted.
If you perform more of commercial building repairs, will the B classification be more appropriate to apply? Yes, you cannot use B2. Do you know if a general B license can obtain a permit to do a re-roof project, Ron?
The B can do any kind of carpentry or building on its own. If the project requires 2 or more trades, then yes, the B2 could take on that, as long as it is taking on the construction and 2 additional building trades. If it's strictly just re-roofing, that's going to be a C39 roofing contractor.
Okay, thank you. Looks like that's all the questions we have. That's all we have. Thank you for all your questions. If you have any other questions about your applications, we encourage you to drop an email to our licensing division. Here is the email address: licensing@cslb.ca.gov. That's licensing@cslb.ca.gov. If at some point you need to reschedule your exam, you can start the process by emailing exams@cslb.ca.gov. We also put together a list of available resources for women considering a career construction. If you haven't already, be sure to download this presentation. To get them, you can download the presentation. You see a green banner on the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. If you are watching the archive video of this workshop on our YouTube page, you will find a link to the presentation down below.
We welcome your comments or topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email to social@cslb.ca.gov. Special thanks to our Licensing Division and Public Affairs Office for their help on this workshop. The Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyrighted production of the California State Licensing Board. Thank you for watching.